From Del Rio, Texas, Rob Wade and Robert Garza. Two guys who dive. This episode of Two Guys Who Dive, recorded live Saturday, 5 April 2014, episode 99. So, how was your weekend? Well, welcome once again to another exciting episode of Two Guys Who Dive, and I am your venerable host, Rob Wade, and Robert's not here again this weekend. Had some family business he had to take care of. It's always challenging, you know, when you're doing a volunteer type setup, getting folks who can set aside the time. We may look at an alternate night to do the show if I can get my co-host more consistent, but we're gonna see what happens. Sorry for those of you who were jumping in and watching the start of the show. We had a false start. It's pretty horrible when you have that moment when you start to do something and the program that you're running comes back, especially if it's using a web-based service, which we're using, of course, Ustream, and you start the program, start the podcast, and then suddenly you get kicked off because it says your login credentials have expired, or rather your authorization credentials. So the way this works is because we are not using the Ustream producer software that is available from Ustream, and because quite frankly, the free version gives you very, very little in the way of capability, whereas XSplit, for a very, very small cost, gives you tremendous capability. The lower thirds and all the stuff that you see us doing in the show, XSplit is just so much better for it. So anyway, since we're using a third-party application to connect to to Ustream, you have to authorize the app. Those of you who use Facebook and other applications, you're probably familiar with when you try to use a third-party app like Instagram or Vine or any number of programs or apps that can let you connect or log in with your Facebook account. You have to authorize the app to do so, and then you can go back into the settings later to disable that particular app if you decide you want to uninstall it or don't want to otherwise give it any future access to Facebook and vice versa. So you can deauthorize the app. Well, in this case, Ustream forces you after so much time, and this is the first I've run into it, so I was totally caught off guard by it. It forces you to reauthorize the app that you're using to log in and connect with, in this case, XSplit. So we got started, and all of a sudden it came back and said, I'm sorry, you have to reauthorize this app. So we had to kill, obviously we lost our feed, so we had to kill it, come back in. Then it gives you a screen where you can reauthorize the app, so we authorize the app. And it actually worked out fortuitously for us because we were in the process of finishing up copying huge media files from my wife's Lumia 1020. She's got the white version of this, because she was out at our Street Beat gig that we were doing tonight to take some pictures and video, because we like to chronicle the events. And of course, I haven't even had a chance to look at the video. So if I pull it up during the podcast, you'll be seeing some of the video for the first time, like I will. The Lumia 1020 does awesome job of recording video if you've got decent sound to work with. As a matter of fact, I do have. Well, I don't want to jump ahead here, but if the audio that is being produced is good quality. And unfortunately, it started out that the audio out from the audience perspective was not the best, according to my wife. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to hear how it sounds. But so the episode title this week is "So How Was Your Weekend?" And decided to title that because this is just a very, very busy weekend for us. We've got a lot of things going on. The big thing for me is that I'm a part of a contemporary Christian band called Living Water Sound. You can look it up online or on Facebook. Look up the Living Water Sound. And we are a group that is headed by Richard Murnau. He's the songwriter for the band, and some of the players have been with him from the beginning. George McKnight, our bass guitarist, has been there with him from the beginning, and so has Tommy Saldana, our Sondag, our lead guitarist. They've been with him since the beginning, but we've been through, and I kind of joined after the first album came out. So Tommy and George and Richard been together, and then we've been through a couple of different drummers, and actually I think 3 or 4 by now. I joined up and kind of expanded the capabilities. So and we've been actually working on the second second album, CD, whatever project. That's what they call it these days. Been working on that, and adding, bringing those songs into our different ministry events that we're part of. And so this weekend is very busy because this is the annual Street Beat, which is headed by Cart and managed by Larry Lockhart. He brings in a number of contemporary Christian artists from all over the country. A lot of them from within state, but he brings them from everywhere if he can get them. As a matter of fact, let me bring it up. Do I have slideshow, some stuff? I probably can add some things. We have actually 2 nights that we do that's involved with the event. Typically, the Friday night before, we do out in front of lately Walmart, but we've done in front of the mall and places like that. So this shot is taken by one in front of Walmart last night. So it was a late night last night. This is Harmony. This guy has an awesome testimony. He's been in prison. He's done, and he even tells as part of his testimony, he has done just about every kind of bad thing you can think of. Sad part is the world today wouldn't call most of the things that he does as bad, and that's the shame of all this, that the world would not call it bad. But he's been in prison. He's done all sorts of drugs. Just the list is crazy. But he found Christ, and so he's stepped out, and he's actually made a pretty successful contemporary Christian rap artist career for himself. I don't know too many people that can rap as fast as he can, and it's contemporary Christian stuff, so it's got a great message. But the guy raps very fast, and he's very articulate. You can understand everything that he says. He's amazing to watch, and he's got a decent voice too, because he actually sings part of the songs that he's actually doing, not just doing rap. But he's pretty awesome. Now we also had Brian Sumner. Now, I'm not a skater, but those in the skateboarding world are probably familiar with this guy, and he's funny. He's got a great testimony. He tells again his life was kind of a mess. Coming into being literally a world famous skateboarder, which I'm going to show you a little bit of video of some of his stuff when he was a little bit younger. But he's where we go. Let's pause. He's got a wonderful testimony how he got really, tons of money right off the bat. And of course, met a girl, got married, got her pregnant, and then his life fell apart. And he literally got to the point where he was ready to kill himself. And then he had that pivotal moment where he gave his life to Christ and started to rebuild everything. Let me show you a little bit of video screen region here of some of the stuff that he's done. This guy, I would kill myself just by doing some of the work. So anyway, that is, let me skip ahead here. That's Brian Sumner. So he's got a very powerful testimony, and he was actually speaking last night and tonight, and also was having a skateboarding exhibition here in Del Rio. So that brought out the local skaters, some of whom I actually know. I skateboarded when I was a kid. It was nothing like what they do now. I mean, it's so tame compared to what they do now. So, he obviously has a particular group that of people, of youth, that he can connect with. And so it was really cool to see him. He was very, very good speaker too. Very powerful. And then also we had Climbing Blind, a very, very good group. Matter of fact, I've got these guys very talented, very, very humble. You talk about, I have dealt with a number of groups over the years in various capacities in the secular world, particularly who are very full of themselves. When I was involved with the Campus Activity Board at Missouri Southern State College, now university, we had a number of different groups. That was the big thing of the CAB. And the year we contracted to bring in Rick Springfield, you talk about somebody who was all into himself. He was really starting to hit his stride as far as being famous in the music arena. And the writer for his contract was just ridiculous for all the things that he wanted, just to personally take care of his wants, his needs, his desires. Had nothing to do with actually supporting the performance itself. Just crazy stuff. And it just goes on. All these groups are like this, or a lot of these groups are like this. But in the Christian realm, you can run into some groups that are a little bit more prima donna, but these guys are just generally humble. They understand where they get their talent and that they have anointed gift. And it's just it was just great to deal with these guys. Let me bring up some video. Searching for that satisfaction, constant reaction. My heart is leaving. This was taken with my Lumia 1020, by the way. sharing with me last night. We were talking about rigs because I'm typically the keyboardist in our band, and I've had to deal with a number of bits of repair work on my keyboard. And he was saying, "Hey, do you know how to fix my keyboard?" And we're looking at his rig. He had a key that was sticking, and I said, "Well, every keyboard's different. Yeah, their actual keyboard mechanism is put together, how the spring loading works, how the key action works, is going to be a little bit different by manufacturer." But I gave him some suggestions. I said, if it's something you're going to fix, you may want to do, like swap sections or pieces of the key if it's broken. And so when I met up with them this afternoon, when we were getting ready to go on, he was telling me, "Hey, listen, we got the keyboard broke down. It was very quick on that machine." His device actually is very user-friendly when it comes to opening it up to access various components. And I'm getting a text from somebody. Somebody's asking if he can come by to fill up a tank. I'm going to tell him, I'm in the middle of my podcast, dude. It's so hilarious. People should know my schedule is pretty tight and somewhat predictable because I have certain things I do every week. Same bat time, same bat channel. So anyway, they were excited that it was very quick repair for them. They ended up kind of taking my suggestion. In this case, it was a key that was broken. And so, I'd suggested that on my keyboard, I've got an 88 key keyboard, and I very rarely, if ever, use the very, very left side, the bottom of the key, because usually those notes are so low you can't hear the actual tone. So, and that's exactly what they did. They actually swapped a key from lower on the keyboard to get that working, because obviously you see how he's playing there. That's the typical range most keyboardists are spending their time, and they may do some things up on the high end on his right hand, which I do too, glissandos, etc. But very rarely things from the bottom end of the keyboard. So I was very happy for them that he was able to get his keyboard up and running for tonight's gig. And let's see, go on the next picture. This was last night. I was actually, again, I told you I am typically the keyboardist, but for the near term, I am now the drummer. And what happened was our longtime drummer, Mark, had taken a job in Florida. So unfortunately, that meant they kind of put us on a temporary, unplanned, unscheduled hiatus while we located another drummer. Well, Rich found another drummer whom I actually have not met yet. But just as they were getting spun up, kind of getting him to learn, working with him to learn the song so we could get back out in the field, as it were, he started developing some health problems that kind of took him out. So he's going to San Antonio back and forth doing tests and things like that. Well, so Rich said, "Hey, do you think you can pick up the drum bits?" I said, "Okay." Because actually, drums are what I started with way back when I was a kid. When my dad came in and I was in 3rd or 4th grade, he asked me, "Son, pick an instrument." And of course, my dad played, he's deceased, played like 7 instruments. He was very good on the drums, but definitely his primary instruments were in the guitar range. He could play banjo and 12-string and all that stuff. He could play, but his big thing was guitar. And that happened to be the instrument that a lot of my other family members played. So in our household, it was like hee-haw. So, dad, uncles, sister would all break out the guitars, and they were, it was all country and western stuff typically. So I wanted to avoid that like the plague. I hate country music, okay? I hate it. So I picked drums. And so I actually started on those, eventually got a full drum set, and played those for 12 years before I joined the Air Force. And of course, anybody who's been enlisted in the Air Force, or this is probably true just in any of the branches of the service, you have weight restrictions as far as, or weight limits as far as what they'll move for you. And the higher rank you are, the more weight that you can accumulate to have the government move for you. Well, I was newly married at the time, and so had a lot of household goods and that kind of thing. So had to trim the weight where I could. So unfortunately, not knowing my situation, what my situation would be like once we got to Del Rio, among the things I sold were the drums. So once I got here, eventually I started deciding I wanted to pick up the keys, because it's easier to accompany yourself, especially if you're writing songs, with a keyboard than with a drum set. So I picked up keys, and so I've actually been playing that primarily since the 80s. And then coming back to Del Rio, when we worked up the band Red Handed, we actually had our fourth set. We added a song by ZZ Top, Under Pressure, that our drummer, who was not really a singer, he's actually worked himself up to being a pretty decent singer at this point, as far as typical rock and roll is concerned. He does the karaoke stuff a lot, but that was his one song that he could sing in the group, because it doesn't require tremendous vocal range. But obviously singing and playing was not going to be in the cards for him. So I was like, okay, well, I'll step back behind the skins again, and had a fun time playing that song on drums. But I hadn't really touched it again till got involved with praise and worship teams, and actually with our youth, and I actually had to pick up the drums again to help our youth out. It's kind of been on again, off again thing with me, and I'll go back and practice just to keep my skills up, keep my chops up. Well, it comes in handy to be able to still do that when you have a situation like we have in Living Water Sound. So anyway, here's a picture from our gig, just literally just a couple hours before the podcast. The Street Beat, the official big main event, started at noon today and is going till midnight. So we were supposed to go on at 5:15, and anybody who has dealt with live bands, multiple live bands and rap artists and speakers, etc., and all the technical issues that happen in a live event like this, where you have them coming from all over and you can't coordinate, you don't have them all in place to get everything nailed right off the bat. They just kind of show up and you're sound checking them, etc. There was a delay, so we didn't get started till later. So that kind of put me behind the curve a little bit. So let's see. These are taken by my wife, Tara. Here's another shot. Me back there on the drums. It's George, our bass guitarist. There's Rich Morneau, our leader. There's Tommy, our lead guitarist. He's very, very, very talented. Awesome working with him. So we had a good gig. Again, it's always challenging when you have a contracted sound man and sound equipment. You never know what you're going to be running into, and so it was hard for us to tell up on stage, because the mix on stage with the monitors is wildly different than what folks hear out there in the audience. So it's my understanding that it started off sounding pretty bad as far as the balance of things. I mean, it sounded good on stage for us. We could hear what we needed to hear for the most part, and it was pretty good, but a bit of a challenge. They eventually got it cleaned up, and I'm hoping that some of the audio is available from this afternoon. Like I said, we were in the middle of copying all the media files from my wife's 1020. I'm going to see if... Was this the last thing? Probably. Let me see if I can copy this to the... This may kill the performance of our podcast here. Let's see if I can get this copy to video. Copy here. So this is going to eat up some bandwidth as... oh, wow, it's pretty fast. Huh, not so bad. Is that right? 686 megabytes actually copied that fast. I love my network. All right, let's see if I can get this going.
For His grace. Amen. And this is a story song, so if you understand the story, we're going to start off with a girl in the beginning of the story, then it's going to be a guy. And I think you'll catch it as we go along.
Switch to the screen. Better. It's still pretty hefty. My backup vocals were very prominent. They started to add it back in. It sounded fine up on stage, but it was definitely challenging, I'm sure, out there, judging by the video.
He's standing in the cold rain, reading the headlines falling rain.
And this is an original. This is one of Rich's songs. I have to say, this is actually this weekend was the first gig I've actually done outside of the church, done live drumming in literally decades. Singer as a drummer is always challenging. This is definitely a case where having the headset mic would be beneficial. That is a little bit of living water sound, courtesy of my wife's Lumia 1020. Does a really good job in spite of what was pretty poor audio from the audience perspective. I mean, it got better. That was actually I think that was like our next to last song that we did, or maybe third to last song that we did. And so it got better. I'll have to look at some of the other video. I'm sure I'm going to post it up on Facebook and YouTube later on, maybe tonight. We'll see what happens. But anyway, that was our gig, our ministry event. It's an annual thing. Lots going on in Del Rio, and that's again why the title. So how was your weekend? Ours obviously is very busy. We got church tomorrow, and we're excited about finally in Del Rio, after 2 weeks of being out, we get to see God's Not Dead, which is receiving a lot of great reviews. Unfortunately, I went to see Noah, and that was a disgusting movie. That was horrible. I cannot stress how absolutely horrible that movie is. But really looking forward to God's Not Dead, with Kevin Sorbo and Dean Cain, and some of the Duck Dynasty folks are in there too. So looking forward to that. So we'll be going to see that Sunday night. So there's just very little free time this weekend. But if you haven't seen it yet, definitely encourage you to go out to see it. And so we'll be reviewing it next week. Had Robert been here, we would be having his opinion of Divergent, and I'm sure he's gone to see already Captain America. Since our time is so limited, we're not going to have time to see Captain America this weekend. We'll probably try to squeeze it in. I don't know where we could. Monday nights are really, really swamped for me because Tara and I volunteer at A Pet's Wish. And if you're in the local Del Rio area, please, I beg you, volunteer with this organization. Even if it's only like one day a week, one night a week, one morning a week, something. There's so many animals there that need taken care of. There's a routine that you can really help with. It's easy once you get used to the routine. Feed, water, clean the cat boxes, clean out the pens, and then put them away for the night if you're working the night shift, or the evening feeding. In the morning, you're bringing them all out to put them in the outdoor cages when the weather permits, to let them have some airtime and take care of their business. And also you're doing the morning feeding and watering at that point. It's not difficult, but it gets mundane and repetitive, and it's easier if you have more people volunteering, because you can spread that across. If they really had a lot of people do it, you could just end up just volunteering one morning or one evening every 2 weeks. But it seems like they always run into days where they just don't have any help, and they literally put out the call on Facebook begging for people to be available to come help. Let me tell you, we really do get blessed when we go volunteer at A Pet's Wish. That's our every Monday evening thing. We go there after dinner, and we take care of them, and just a bunch of little sweethearts out there. Your heart just breaks for these animals. You see some of them come in such horrible condition. It just makes me want to slap people hard. Just treat them the way they treat those dogs. It's just so sad. And just to give them a little bit of love and affection and nurse them back to health just makes me feel so much better. So anywho, and then also there's a Cajun Fest going on at the Whitehead Memorial Museum this weekend as well. So competing events. One of our, a couple of ours, are friends of ours, Trish and Gay, who you may have seen on an episode or two of Two Guys Who Dive. They are attending that. So have fun. I love Cajun food, but we had the gig. There was no way we're going out to that, and of course had the podcast tonight. So how much I'm dedicated to this, that I'm gonna keep keep going and miss out on some great Cajun food. Darn it. Let's see. Tech news. Unless you've been living under a rock, Microsoft announced, or they had their annual Build conference. So it was Build 2014. And they officially announced what had already been leaked, and I've shared my opinions about Windows 8.1 Update 1, or AKA the Spring Update. So they showed a number of things about that. And so it's going to be officially released, I guess, to everybody next week as part of the update process. So if you're familiar, if you have Windows machines, you hopefully have your computer set up to do automatic updates, which means that anytime there are new patches, updates, especially the critical ones, those will automatically be loaded to your system. You may come home and find that it needs to be rebooted, etc. So next Tuesday, you should see that available. And it's a series of actual files that gets updated and adds a number of pieces of functionality that people who just can't seem to understand how to use the Metro interface and how to really maximize the new way of operating in Windows 8. Basically, and I totally disagree with Paul Thurrott, who is a known authority on all things Windows. I normally agree a lot with what he says, but in this case, I'm sorry, I flat out disagree. I really think that a large part of 8.1 Update 1 is going backwards because it's appeasing people who just can't grasp new ways of operating. And so they just insisted that Microsoft roll certain things back, and that's exactly what's happened. Everything that you could do in Windows 7, you could still do in Windows 8. You just had additional ways you could do it. But no, that wasn't good enough for a bunch of whiners out there who are incapable of grasping new concepts. So Microsoft bent over backwards to accommodate all those whiners. And so we've gone 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I still love Windows 8, but just this frustrates me. And if I could find some registry entries that would allow me to reverse some of the changes that this created, because I found they accidentally released it early a couple of weeks ago, and so I loaded it, and so that's why I'm able to talk with some authority about it, because I've installed it on both my laptop and my desktop. The main studio machine, as a matter of fact. And the big thing for me that I really cared about, because I was already well familiar with the Windows 8 update, is Windows Phone 8.1. Huge changes. This is almost like Windows Phone 9. There's so many dramatic changes to it. The big thing was Cortana, the new voice interface system with it. And by what I saw, and by what most of the tech bloggers are saying, this leapfrogs Siri and Apple's Siri and Google's now. So I'm really excited for not only what it's going to be bringing and all the other features that are coming with 8.1, tons of business features, VPN, encrypted email, etc. This gives us a hint as to what's coming to the desktop, because Cortana and all of that search and learning about you and predicting what you need is going to come to the desktop and tablets, obviously, as well as Xbox One. So the idea of having Jarvis-like functionality is not that far away. Obviously the big jump will be getting it onto Windows 8. Then the next thing will be to expand it to Xbox One, which I think that part is coming next year. But one of the things I think that was most exciting from the developer standpoint is universal apps. With moving Windows Phone to 8.1, it brings more unity to the whole ecosystem. And so literally what they did was then a day later, this Thursday, I think. Yeah. Thursday, Microsoft made available the updated App Studio. Now, I've actually created an app for Ceti Fox Productions. It's not nothing really fancy, but it's a convenient way that if I actually go to this next step, which is to publish it for everybody to use, so you can see it. Here we go. Throw it to the camera. So this is my app on. Get the glare from the TV. Is my app from for Windows Phone 8. So I click on one of those, and you can just pivot through different things. Let me go backwards. There we go. And so the podcasts from the show are automatically updated when I upload them. So for instance, right now the latest episode that shows up on here is episode 98. And you can look back at the previous ones too. And once you click on one, then it shows you more details. All the description that I have when I upload these are made available, and then you can actually watch them. And so it's all built into the app, and then you can flip through, look at other episodes, etc. So it's very cool. Well, because of the universal apps idea, they updated their studio that I actually built this app in. You can turn around and take that same app and regenerate it as a Windows 8 Metro app. So I literally, just within a few minutes, I logged in and took this app that you just saw. I took it and regened it for Windows Phone 8.1 and Windows 8.1. And so I have it actually installed on my laptop. And it does a pretty decent job. Now, obviously, if you've got a very scaled down app anyway, which mine is, it's very simple. It's somewhat sparse on a big screen. But even so, that process, the generation process, does a pretty good job of compensating where it can. But just the idea that now developers could write once and it's available on multiple platforms. Soon they'll be expanding that capability to also the Xbox One, but they've got some updates that they have to obviously load to Xbox One so that it can take advantage of the same store that Windows Phone and Windows 8 desktop tablet can now take advantage of. Matter of fact, now they call it a combined store. The other beauty about that is you buy an app for, let's say, Windows 8. If it's a universal app, or a game or an app, if you buy it once on one platform, you don't have to buy it again on the other platforms. It's universal. So if I buy Halo Spartan Assault universal app from the Windows Store, I can run it on my phone or my tablet or desktop, whatever I have, and eventually on Xbox One. It's universally available. That's huge. That is huge. Buy once, install, use anywhere. That's my thing. I want ubiquitous access to everything. I want to be able to walk into one room and something follow me without glitch, without hiccup, to another room, to another device, whether I'm using my phone or my desktop, whatever, it doesn't matter. That is my big thing. So the developer preview, those of you who are developers and have your phone registered, your Windows Phone registered with that program, which is actually free if you're using the Windows App Studio, you can get the Windows Phone 8.1 update actually earlier than what will be rolling out. And that looks like that's going to be the following week. So 2 weeks from now should be available. If you're not part of that program, basically it's going to be how the carriers work it, because a lot of the carriers are marrying up firmware updates for their phones as well as the operating system updates. So for the developers, you'll get the operating system bits, but not any of the stuff that's enhanced by your manufacturer's firmware for their phone. Like Nokia has got the Cyan update coming. So that will be, and since we're on AT&T, that will be based on what AT&T decides to do. So, and they've been inconsistent in their performance there. So, anyway, on to scuba diving type stuff. I was noticing that, and I will look into a number of different blogs, scuba diving, tech sites, etc. looking at just interesting articles. Different things will strike my fancy at different points. And I almost blew right past a little article on some newer discoveries of species of marine life, and I thought this is pretty fascinating. Some of the things that they found, and some of it doesn't even look real. You would expect it to show up in a science fiction movie or something. Let me bring up the slideshow and switch slideshows here. Here we go. So the first one, and again, this is a great shot and doesn't even look real. It looks like something that was fabricated, really. But this is the Yeti crab. And it's from the South Pacific, and they found this near thermal vents. Now, if you've watched any Discovery Channel, Science Channel, any of those, where they've done these deep, what's the word I'm looking for? Not submarines, but remote bathyscaves and deep diving. They're like a bathyscave. And they go down to, thousands of feet underwater. And so there's zero light there other than what they bring with them. And then you see these thermal vents, these black smokers, where it's just, you go from freezing water to water that's hundreds of degrees near these vents. And almost all of the life there is white. Like this. The shrimp, etc., are like this. And this is amazing. I mean, I think it was aptly named the Yeti crab. But these things live around these thermal vents. Let's see, next on our hit parade. I think this is just amazing. This is called the Gorgon head starfish. And for those who are familiar with the Gorgon, that's a Greek mythological monster that has all these like snakes out of its head, and so they called this the Gorgon head starfish. This is from the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and eats shrimp and plankton. This is just fascinating the way this looks. What's the purpose behind this kind of a design? Because I mean, for the typical starfish, they have very symmetric arms, typically. Even the crown of thorns starfish is pretty symmetrical. And then you have this thing that doesn't look like it has any kind of rhyme or reason to the way the arms work on this. But obviously that's its motive power. Now this next one is less exciting, but what shocks me about the Carolina hammerhead shark is that it was only discovered last year. And I thought, okay, I probably wouldn't be able to tell this from others, but they said it actually is genetically and structurally different from its more well-known cousin. I guess the typical hammerhead, as a matter of fact, while I've got that up, let me see if I can find a typical hammerhead shark. See if we can see a comparison. Hammerhead shark. See if I can get a good... that doesn't look tremendously different. Let me bring this one up. Show larger. Alright, switch to screen region. So this is the more well-known hammerhead shark, comparatively. I guess it's got a thinner head to it. And then you switch back to our slideshow. Let me skip ahead here. I guess that looks thicker. This evidently has it's 10 less vertebrae than the other one, and it spawns in coastal estuaries. So this thing is almost freshwater because of the way it where it tends to spawn. That's amazing. And let's see. Now this next one is just impressive. Again, it doesn't look real. This is called the scaly foot gastropod, or it's obviously a snail. Now this is another species that is found near thermal vents, and it uses the iron sulfides and the iron pyrite that is kicked out by these black smokers, the thermal vents. It actually uses those to construct the plates that you see. So literally, this thing is armored. It's an ironclad snail, for lack of a better description. I mean, this is amazing. I would thoroughly expect to see somebody come up with something like this as part of a science fiction movie. If you told me this thing was real, I would probably say nuh-uh. But nope. This, again, new species discovered. Just shows you God's great design. He had it all figured out. Amazing. The last one we have on our list. Here we go. No, it's not somebody vomiting on the shore. That is a giant Tasmanian jellyfish that washed up on shore. It's about 5 feet in diameter. That's monstrous. But I guess there is another type of jellyfish that hangs around the area, but the lion's mane jellyfish. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find that. Bing to the rescue. Lion's head, or lion's mane, pardon me. Oh, there it is. Lion's mane jellyfish. Oh, there's a good picture. Let me bring this one up. So, this is the lion's mane jellyfish right here. So you can see, yeah, there definitely is a bit of similarity between it and, skip forward, and that. You can see there's color similarities, but I guess they were able to glean enough from this. Again, it just looks like somebody threw up on they had a bad party. This is after spring break in Fort Lauderdale or Pensacola. And so anyway, I guess they were able to differentiate this from the lion's mane, but they said it's similar, but it is a distinct, separate species. You know, the interesting thing about jellyfish is that there are so many different species. Some are poisonous, some are not. Some just create irritation. And for instance, the box jellyfish, which is one of the smallest ones out there, has the most potent poison to it, and it will kill you within seconds. But then others they're not poisonous at all. But all have given, as each new species gets discovered, they bring new medical research opportunities to bear, because there are some really interesting things about how jellyfish work, how they live, how they survive in huge depths. I mean, tremendous depths. As a matter of fact, there is one jellyfish, the Turritopsis jellyfish, that they've discovered is functionally immortal, because every cell in this jellyfish works like a stem cell. In other words, all the great work that they're doing with stem cell research right now, which it's all been on the adult stem cell side. There's been no successes in the embryonic stem cell side. But with this Turritopsis jellyfish, the interesting thing is that because every cell works like a stem cell, it's able to transdifferentiate into whatever cells are needed. So if it gets damage in a particular part, if the shellfish or if the jellyfish takes on damage and needs to regenerate, other cells as part of the jellyfish can get the signal of, oh, I need to become a tendril, or I need to become the poison organ or whatever, it will transdifferentiate. In other words, it kind of goes backward. It regresses to a stem cell and then regenerates itself. It then rebuilds itself into the new component that's necessary. So literally, it goes backward in the aging process. And as far as scientists can tell, can do this forever. In other words, there's no known limitation to it. And that's the Turritopsis jellyfish. So obviously that gives them some potential opportunities to learn more about how they could enhance stem cell research, as well as understand the aging process and how they could, is there some way they could enable humans to do something similar that would be great for all sorts of handling diseases, etc. So I just thought that was really fascinating stuff about some of the new species that are found. So obviously we're not going to see this kind of stuff in Del Rio, although there were rumors a year or so ago that somebody found freshwater jellyfish in Lake Amistad. I've not seen anything, and I'm one of those pictures or it never happened, okay? So, but you're not going to see this kind of stuff in Lake Amistad, but it's still a fun place to go diving, and we're finally starting to move towards the end of the season where we can start diving. It's just it's not been warm enough. I mean, today was very chilly, as a matter of fact. Last night was chilly when we were doing our gig at Walmart, and then this afternoon at the amphitheater. I mean, I was dressed in a short sleeve shirt, but there was a pretty good breeze going, and I was getting chilled, and I was just imagining if I was in the water. Now, it takes a while because it takes a while to heat up a lake after the air temperatures start finally heating up, because it holds on to and releases heat at a much slower rate than land does, which is why your shore will heat up and cool down faster by comparison, because it can't hold on to the heat, whereas water will hold on to it and release it at a slower rate. So the water temperatures are still very, very chilly. A 5 mil full, I'd say at least, is necessary to enjoy a dive right now. And as it turns out, I do have a person who's interested in taking the class this month, but no deposit, no course materials. So we may not get that class going, but so far I've got one person that's interested. I did say you're going to need a full wetsuit to go out here, because it is chilly. It is chilly out there. So, and speaking of all things diving around Lake Amistad, I would like to remind folks that Mike McCarson does have his big cascade system for filling tanks up and running out at the Broke Mill RV Park. So just call him at 830-719-2935, and we'll throw that up again at the Administrivia here as we wind down the show. And a quick reminder, we mentioned this last week, if you are into watching shows like The Deadliest Catch, this season, which premieres on the 22nd of April, season 10 premieres, and they are adding diving footage as part of the shows. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting. I would catch the show every so often. It just, most of those, the reality series just don't really do it for me. But I love crab. So it's kind of interesting to see where my food comes from. But this adds a particular incentive to watch this show. So if they're going to be adding diving footage, that will fascinate me. And so that premieres again 22nd of April. So on the Discovery Channel, again, if you didn't know, Discovery Channel. So all right, let's hit the Administrivia. Here we go. All right, so next Dive Club meeting is the 17th of April, 7 p.m. At Rudy's Restaurant. Dive classes for 2014. And it's not looking good for being able to knock out the April one, but we'll see what happens. April 24th through the 27th. Next up is May 22nd through the 25th, followed by June 26th through the 29th. Then July 24th through the 27th. August 28th through the 31st, September 25th through the 29th. And again, we have you can get your air fills done en masse at the Broke Mill RV Park out on Highway 90 West. Just call 830-719-2935 and work with Mike McCarson to get that set up. He'll meet you out there to get your tanks filled up, or you can drop them off. I think he mentioned he's got a setup where you could drop them off, and then with your contact information, obviously. Now, let me warn you about that. Let me warn you about dropping your tanks off or just bringing them, even if you bring them to me. You have to have, at a minimum, they must be within the 5-year hydro testing date, and that will be stamped via a hammer and imprint there'll be a relief stamped into the metal of the tank. So look for that date, and you'll see multiple ones. The older your tank is, you'll have multiple markings in there. So make sure that it's within that 5-year time frame. Otherwise, you're going to have to take it, go get its hydro testing again, which is going to be anywhere from $15 to $25, depending on where you go. And it must be within its annual visual inspection. And if you're in the Del Rio area, that's something I can do. And matter of fact, Robert and I have to schedule our refresh to go up to get ourselves. That's a 3-year thing, so we have to go up and get that redone this year. I think in 2 months, as a matter of fact, got to get it done by. So, but anyway, if your tank has expired as far as its annual visual inspection, you can just get a hold of me and we'll take care of that. Speaking of getting a hold of us, you can stop by our DelRioDiveClub.com webpage. And then also, we definitely would like you to like our Facebook page. Just look for Del Rio Dive Club. Or you can send a message through Skype, TGWD. Which reminds me, one thing that I thought... That was interesting. One thing I thought was really cool about what is coming with Windows Phone 8.1 is tighter integration of Skype. If you are on a phone call with somebody, you'll see their picture. If you have a picture assigned to them, you'll see where you can end the call, or you can add another person, because you can very easily do phone conferencing with Windows Phone. And then there's all these other buttons on there for bring up the dialer or saving the contact, some other things. A button that's being added is for Skype. While you're in the middle of an actual phone call with somebody, you can press the Skype button and it will upgrade. It will shift the phone call, the regular phone call, to a video call, a Skype call. Now, one thing that hasn't been shared, and it's probably not capable, but it would be cool if it is. One thing that nobody's shared is if you could regress. They call it upgrading to a Skype call. What they haven't shared is if you could downgrade back to a phone call. So, for instance, if your significant other calls you and they're out shopping, and you've put on your list some product, and there's multiple products like what you're looking for, and they're not sure, they can upgrade the call to a Skype call and then use the camera to show what's going on, show the shelves, and so you can say, okay, move to the left, move to the left. No, that one right there. That's the one I want. And then obviously to save your data, if you're using your regular data minutes, it would be cool to be able to downgrade that back to a phone call. So you're using your phone minutes as opposed to your actual data minutes or data plan. So it's probably not capable, at least with 8.1, but that would be cool if it is. But anyway, I just think it's really neat that Skype is being further integrated. I think that's exactly where it needed to go. I like the idea of being able to shift modes without interruption. That's very cool. So anyway, if you want to get in touch with me directly, you could follow me on Twitter. I will warn you, I have a lot of political stuff that I put on there. I'm an activist, if you will. But I'll share all sorts of things, especially a lot of Windows Phone, Windows 8 type stuff. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, just look for @RobertCFP. Just look me up there. Or you can send me an email, robert.wade@cetifox.net. And I will definitely respond to your emails. Like Robert, I do not have a personal assistant who does that stuff for me. I'm very interactive. I'm not a prima donna. I'll take care of it all. I'll respond to you. You may not like what I respond with. No, I'll be kind. But we're always looking for your ideas, so your suggestions for the show. If you'd like to see things added to Two Guys Who Dive, ideas for features that we can do, or if you're in the Del Rio area and you would like to guest on the show, it's very easy to do. It's not really challenging. We've had a number of guests come into the show before. Troy shows up quite frequently. In fact, I'm going to see if he's available for next week, our 100th episode. Hard to believe. And Nick Van Winkle has been on a couple of times, so like having him on when he's available. So as we get ready to gear up for a new dive season, make sure you check all your gear out. Make sure everything's working. You don't want to jump in on that first dive of the season not knowing for sure if your batteries are good in your computer console, if you're running a console. Batteries are good in your lights if you're diving with lights, which we always dive with at least the BC light attached. So we always check the batteries on it. Make sure your light bulbs are good, whether it's regular light bulbs, halogen light bulbs, LEDs. All of them could break, so you got to make sure that those are ready. Check the condition of the zippers on your BC or your BC pockets if they're zippered pockets. On your wetsuits, those can get kind of atrophied if they're not used during the year, and there are plenty of what's the word I'm looking for? Ointment is not the word. Lubricants that you can get for the zippers that actually recondition and help them, so they're easier to zip and unzip. And of course, you may want to kind of rinse out your gear. Sometimes you may not have done a good job of rinsing wetsuits and BCs out when you were finished for the season, and however you stored them, you may open them up and realize, oh, that's pretty gamey. So make sure you rinse those out, and make sure you're using either a bona fide wetsuit and BC shampoo or something like Johnson's Baby Shampoo, because they're very, very low suds. And so what you don't want to have happen is hopping in the water and suddenly you're creating a little bubble bath. That is just really embarrassing. You will get a good laugh from more seasoned divers if that happens to you. So let's see. That's all I have. And check the condition of your mask straps and your fin straps, because those can atrophy over time. And there's nothing more frustrating than pulling tight a strap and it breaks off in your hand. I've seen it happen. Thankfully, I always carry a Save a Dive kit. You should too. I carry a Save a Dive kit that has a mask strap. It has a fin strap, as well as various O-rings, etc. So I'm ready to replace just about any component that typically would wear out on a dive. And I've had to rescue some other folks too when they break a strap or something. So it's always good to have those on hand. Not that expensive and a worthwhile investment to save your dive. Well, that's all that I have for tonight. Hope you had a good time, or if you're watching on YouTube later after we upload this, hope you enjoyed the episode. Got to share a little bit more of our personal life as far as the gig with the band and Street Beat. It's still going on even as we speak, as a matter of fact. So if you're in the Del Rio area and you're done with the Cajun Fest, pop on over to the amphitheater over by Moore Park over on San Felipe Creek and check out the rest of the bands that are playing tonight. They're going till midnight, so it's going to be a long night. I'm going to be relaxing here at the house, kind of doing a little bit of practicing just to gear up for church in the morning. Leading praise and worship is fun and a lot of work, and it's challenging, but it is ultimately it is fun. But if you're not going to a local church, I highly encourage you to give it a shot. Well worth your time. And could be good for the soul, as they say. So listen, we love having you with us, and we enjoy doing the show, even when it's just me. And here it is, already almost 9:25. and I can talk to a wall. I can talk to a tree. There's a party inside of my head 24/7, 365. I'd be okay in a white room, a round white room with white clothes and a white chair. Actually, you could take away the chair and I'd still have a party going on. But that's okay. That's what enables me to step out and do stuff like this. It can be pretty daunting if you're trying to do something like this and you don't have like a live audience. Of course, Tara and I, being involved in theater and performing, we work with live audiences all the time. We deal with people in audiences all the time. Sometimes they're not all that live, let's just put it that way. But that's okay. Professionalism steps in, and ultimately, even if there's nobody out there, they're not having a good time, you have to decide you're going to have a good time with what you're doing because you believe in the material that you're sharing, whether it's a performance, whether it's just talking to somebody or talking on TV or radio or the internet. You have to take a subject that you like. For those who might be entertaining the idea of maybe guesting on the show here, if you're local to Del Rio, let me give you this suggestion to think about if you're on the fence. You talk to people all the time about different things, okay? You get into a conversation with people, and you can watch any group that you're in. If you go to a party, you can watch the dynamic of people who talk to other people, especially if they become kind of the center of attention. And that center can often shift, and it's based on the enthusiasm of the person who's talking. And if you have somebody who is more comfortable with a group of people that can help seed the conversation so that it becomes inviting to you to participate in it, it's amazing how much easier it is for you to just talk to people. And that's really all this is you're imagining people on the other end of this camera. So if I'm looking at the camera or not, I'm just imagining somebody on the other end. And I look every so often, I look in the chat room to see if there's anybody in there that has questions, suggestions, etc. But it's just the idea of being able to share your thoughts with people that you imagine are actually there, even if it's later on YouTube. Our pastor obviously has a congregation that he's teaching to, but now that we live stream our services every morning or every Sunday morning, he's now gotten used to the idea of he's not just addressing the folks that are there in the church, in the sanctuary. He's addressing all those people that are watching via the internet or maybe watching it on YouTube later because we upload our services afterward. So it's just understanding that you might have an audience that could benefit from what you're saying. So if you are in any way, shape, or form interested in the conversations that we have, and you see that it's kind of diverse. We talk about diving, we talk about tech, we talk about some politics and religion, local events. Everybody who has been able to come on the show as a guest has had a good time, because my responsibility as the host is to keep things moving, but also to help draw you into the conversation, whether you're watching or whether you're here guesting on the show. I have a responsibility to help draw you into it. And to the degree that you're willing to contribute is the degree that you'll have fun. And so rarely does anybody come in here with absolutely nothing that they can say, because I can usually find something to hook some sort of conversation from them, and then just let them roll. And then when it looks like it's slowing down, you just move on to something else, or just or seed the subject to escalate it to a higher level. But that's my comfort zone, is I can do all that. So if you're willing to take a chance and have fun, love to have you participate. And as we start getting more interested, more people in the local Del Rio area who are divers interested, I'm going to be trying to draw those folks into the podcast, get their ideas. There's a couple of folks who have seemed really enthusiastic, and I'm going to try and get them in on the show to talk about things. So Well, here we are coming up on 9:30, and I need to shut her down so I can get this uploaded to the YouTube for you folks who want to see it later. Again, we really enjoy doing the show, and next week is our 100th episode, so we're looking forward to that. And we will share, hopefully, a number of reviews. By that time, for sure, we will have seen God's Not Dead. Hopefully, Robert will be back. He'll be sharing his thoughts on Divergent. And we hopefully will both have seen Captain America, the Winter Soldier, be able to share our thoughts on that. And like I said, if we can get Troy in here and share his thoughts on it, that'd be cool too. So, and have rip-roaring time for our 100th episode. So hopefully you can join us next week, and we will see you then on another exciting episode of Two Guys Who Dive. See ya.